Hey guys, for letters of recommendation, I think the best thing to do is to ask a letter to a professor that actually knows you and that does not just know your grades, because that's a very bad thing. You should talk to him very often, go to his office hours, whatever. Since this isn't really targeted for a sector like in North America where encounters with professors are pretty straightforward. I mean, other places like me from Peru, for me it was kind of easy maybe, but weird and awkward at the same time at the beginning. Just go randomly to the professor and just keep on talking to him and ask him questions about applying to grad school, about research that I should do, and research projects that I could collaborate in. But we eventually developed that relationship, and from there I'd spend time at the lab and he'd know me personally. The other grad students or researchers would know me, and that's kind of a good thing. So he has not only his opinion about you, but the other people at the lab have their own opinion about you. And if he is ever to write a letter of recommendation, or someone else is to do it for you, and the professor might sign the letter, it'll be very consistent. And a big no-no is if you ask for a letter of recommendation. This happens a lot in Peru and maybe in other countries too. Or maybe if a professor really doesn't know you a lot. If you'll ask for a letter of recommendation, he'll be like, "Oh, okay, you just please write it for me, and I'll just sign it." And if you ever ask for a professor to do that, and he'll tell you that, that's not a good idea. Regardless of ethics and honesty and all that, it's just very hard for you to describe yourself as a third person, from another point of view. Because it's very hard to identify your own, not only errors, but also your edges and how valuable you are. It's very difficult to see that in yourself, because you might think of certain traits that you have or characteristics that are very positive, and others that are really negative. But then there are other qualities that you might have that you just you did not have the most minimal idea, but for someone else, it's just extremely obvious. And the writing style per se is just different. As an international student, if you ask a professor for recommendation, please make sure that this professor knows English so that he can write it firsthand. If that professor does not know English, do not go through the entire job of just making him write you something and then you have it translated into another language and all that. That's just extremely fuzzy and complicated, and it's not worth it. Even if he was famous, I really wouldn't suggest that. I think the only exception of the rule is if a professor asks you to write him a sketch of a letter of recommendation, is if the professor actually kind of knows you. He knows, and you've worked with him, and he knows that you're a good student, but you can actually tell that he's extremely busy. So he's not just giving this as an excuse of okay, I feel really lazy and don't want to do anything. Another thing is, so don't just think that the professor's gonna write you something good because you had a good grade. You should go beyond that. And what other restriction am I forgetting? I think that's pretty much it. And choose wisely the 3 professors that are gonna recommend you. Try to make them have, or hopefully the 3 of them have PhDs or doctorate degrees and are educated enough to know how to write a letter of recommendation. And be sure that they know English. I think that's the key thing, because if they don't, it just gets very, very complicated. So that's pretty much it, and this video is way more shorter than the other ones. So see you guys.